Hey, come here. You like pro wrestling? We got a little something for you. Two fans, 3,000 miles away. We each been watching for more than 30 years. Celebrate the art form, the action, the homoeroticism. We ain't rating matches. We ain't analyzing stories. We ain't experts. We just sit down, shut up, and mark out! Hello, everybody. Welcome to Sit Down, Shut Up, Mark Out. I'm Blade Daly, and I'm not joined by Joshi G this week because she ain't feeling too great. But I am joined by two friends of mine that I'm very happy to have with me today. And that would be newbie wrestling podcaster or just podcaster, really. Kurt Jangle, streamer, podcaster extraordinaire, host of the pregame on Fridays. As we tape this, that'll be this evening. But as you hear it, it will have been yesterday. Kurt Jangle, welcome, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, Kurt Jangle, the only adult on the internet, and I'm actually not going to do a show tonight.
Okay,
I'm gonna save the energy for next week because I didn't have time to get all the stuff I wanted to get together for this one.
That's right. Because guess who's going to be on the pregame next week? It's me, just FYI, filling in the blanks.
Yeah, it's going to be Blade.
Yeah. And then I am honored to be joined by my friend, my homie, Shane Ethos in this shot. What up, Shane?
That's right. What's the deal? How we doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Thanks for carving out the time in your busy schedule. I appreciate it. It was like cutting a cake.
Hell yeah. If you ask me to talk wrestling with you, I'm gonna make the time for it.
Yeah. We've all talked before, obviously, on the Hard Way with Brett Michelle. By the way, make sure you subscribe to the Hard Way with Brett Michelle, a show that I am the foil idiot underling of, that gets picked on by everybody. That's kind of the bit, though. You know what I mean? But make sure you subscribe to that because as much as Brett tires me, she is really talented. So, Shane, you are a part of the Ethos Media Network. You guys produce a variety of podcasts, and you are also the producer with Bex Bastet of Don't Call Me Diva.
Indeed.
I really encourage you guys to check out Don't Call Me Diva. It's Bex talking all about women's wrestling. Bex is basically kind of nutty like me in a way. Like we are similar kinds of craze. And I enjoy that about her. If we were in the same room, a vortex would open and the whole earth would get sucked into it. But it's an amazing podcast. Shane, what about the rest of the Ethos Network? Why don't you talk about that for a sec?
So the Ethos Media Network, we call ourselves the conversation of the culture. We try to make content that forces people to think critically and move creatively. So we want people, who think about, various topics, whether it's, social commentary, whether it's politics, whether it's music. We try to take a different angle on a lot of common conversations. So we might talk about the same subject as a lot of other people, but we'll put a different twist on it and try to think about it from a different angle. And then as far as our wrestling show, it's called Shoot Style Sessions that me, my brother, and our buddy Steve do. And that's also on the Ethos Network. And what we do there is, we do a little bit of fantasy booking, a little bit of review, a little just general, wrestling talk. But we also try to infuse it with different things in urban culture. So one of those examples is something I know we're going to get to a little bit later, but something happened this week that, reflects back on something that happened in the 90s when we were growing up watching. So that obviously is something that we're going to cover on the show this week.
Indeed, we will. Indeed, we will.
And then as far as Don't Call Me Diva, again, yes, shout out to Bex, a wonderful host. She, writes out all of her own scripts and, she does everything She makes it really easy for me. All I have to do is produce. She does a lot. So it's really nice having a partner, with the show, who, is putting her all into it just as much as I am as the producer. So wonderful working with her. Definitely make sure everyone subscribe on YouTube to Don't Call Me Diva. And you can also find it on all audio podcast networks as well.
Absolutely. Yes. So far, let's count the shout outs. We've shouted out Joshi G. We've shouted out Brett Michelle, and we've shouted out Bex Bastet. Let's see if we can get all 60 of the Sickos Club members shouted out before the end of the night.
I think we can fit them all in.
We can. Let's see if we can get them all into the intro. No, let's not. Guys, just before we go ahead, I just want to make a quick note. This is our 52nd episode. We have gone 1 year straight without a break, and not like it's been that hard. I just want to thank everybody who listens to Sit Down, Shut Up, Mark Out. It's not very common that you start a podcast and a community crops up around it the way you all have with us. And I just want to tell you how grateful I am for that. I also want to, once again, shout out my friend Joshi G for jumping in head first with me on this whole thing. And it's so much more fun than I ever would have even imagined. It's work, but it's the most fun, rewarding kind of work. Thank you all for your support. If you really want to show your support, you could go to sickosclub.com, go to the merch, and we have a hat there now. We have a fucking hat. You can also get our logo on a shirt. You can wear us on your body. Wear me on your body. That sounded weird. Okay.
You need somebody to make a real commercial for that.
Yes, I know. I have just the guy in mind.
Oh, good.
The last thing before we move on, I'm not sure how old everybody here is, but I grew up watching WCW. I grew up watching Monday Nitro. And one of the people who was a featured player on WCW Nitro that I wouldn't have picked myself, but became an indelible part of it, was Steve Mongo McMichael, who passed away this week, sadly. Mongo had been battling Lou Gehrig's disease for how long? 7 years?
A couple years now. Quite a while.
Yeah. He lived a long time for that disease. When I heard he had it, that's bad news. But he managed to live a very long time with it. Mongo was not a natural in wrestling whatsoever. But he had such a weird charisma about him that eventually he just absolutely won me over. I loved Mongo after a while. When he was on commentary with his little tiny dog that was always dressed up like him.
Pepe.
With his little chihuahua. And then he joined the Four Horsemen. He turned on Kevin Green. The football players teamed up to fight Ric Flair and Arn Anderson. And Mongo fucked over his partner and joined the Four Horsemen. And as a fan, I'm going, what? What the fuck is happening? Don't do this. And I felt that way for about 3 months. And then over time, he just won me over. Mongo was clumsy. He was kind of sloppy. And he was awesome. It all made sense. The way he wrestled made sense. He just punched and kicked, maybe threw guys around a little bit. But it all kind of worked. Anybody here have a great Mongo memory?
I don't really have any Mongo memories from the time it was happening, but I remember sort of towards the end of when Twitter was just about to get, what do you want to call it? Yeah, we'll go with that. Before they got musked. There was a guy that did a Mongo, basically like a Mongo tribute Twitter account, and he would just post clips, Mongo clips every couple days or so. And they can't, it's wrestling related, so it's starting to come up in my feed. I was just like, I really missed out on something here. Like, yeah, like you said, he had a weird charisma, I think is the best way to put it. Mm-hmm. He wasn't good, but he was great. Like, you couldn't take your eyes off him when he was on the screen. So I really appreciate that little bit of good Twitter for turning me on to something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Shane?
Yeah, I mean, for me, in addition to everything that you already mentioned, the one thing that I didn't know actually until very recently, either I didn't know or I just forgot, but he was a part of the Lawrence Taylor entourage against Bam Bam Bigelow. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he briefly appeared in WWF.
That surprised me because I thought his first foray into wrestling was WCW. I thought he was all NFL and then straight WCW. Yeah. So I didn't realize that he was a part of that, and I remember watching that, live when it came on. That was one of the WrestleManias I actually got to buy as a kid. So
you poor kid.
Oh, nice.
So like a lot
that's
of the
one
times,
you get. Yeah.
So interesting that he was a part of the entourage, which of course makes sense. NFL guys all, sticking together but
100%. Yeah, no.
And I remember
he was a wrestling fan, so
yeah,
made all the sense.
If I remember correctly, he did commentary in one episode of Raw.
Oh, really?
I think it was at the if I remember the clip correctly, there was one episode of Raw from the
Manhattan Center.
Wow, that's early too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was just they didn't have the Mongo. They weren't using Mongo for him yet.
Okay.
They were just calling him Steve or whatever. If I remember, like it's been a couple years since that account was active and I was active on Twitter. So
yeah. Well, it's really funny because he was quippy, and a lot of his jabs, especially him and Bobby Heenan, like you can't go toe to toe with Bobby Heenan. Okay. Like, all right. Bobby Heenan's like the funniest dude ever. And going toe to toe with Bobby is not recommended, but Mongo would land one every once in a while. I mean, he had this kind of weird wit, but I heard him do an interview, and I can't remember if it was with Jericho or Colt Cabana 6, 7, 8 years ago. I don't know. Long time ago. And he had quite a wild ride since his wrestling days. Seemed like he had partied a lot. Seemed like he'd had a damn good time, too. So, to Steve McMichael, wild man, insane person, clumsy oaf, we loved you, buddy. And R.I.P., hope you're at peace. May your suffering be done. Best to you. Till the next time. All right. And with that said, Gerald, hit the music. All right. We're coming in. We're coming back in. We're coming in hot. We're coming in fucking full steam, okay? Because we're about to talk about my favorite thing in this goddamn world, and that, Master P. All right. Master P was up in this motherfucker on AEW Dynamite. He kicked shit off. How did you guys feel when you saw Master P with on the Dynamite graphic?
I really wanted the gold tank. I knew we weren't going to get it. Maybe all in. They've got room on the stage to bring in the gold tank out. Maybe. New Orleans ain't too far away from Texas. That would definitely sell me a ticket. I'm still on the fence about it.
Shane,
man, it took me back to 90s WCW when
No Limit Soldiers.
Yeah. When Ray was not wearing a mask and he had fatigues on and he was, like it took me back to that time. And him coming out to make him say was perfect.
Yeah.
That was the best music, to come out to. And
yeah,
it was so good. So like, when you have a Master P and like Bun B, he's been on the show before, and like these legends and stuff like that who are Rick Ross, these legendary dudes. It's like AEW is they're serving the audience they know they should be serving.
Absolutely. No, and who could forget Rick Ross looking at Keith Lee and going, "You're a big motherfucker." Oh my God. So Master P comes out. He immediately grabs the mic and goes, "Make him say, oh, nah. And, I don't know if the crowd wasn't quite giving him what he wanted yet, but he just did it again. And, he was trying to get everybody hyped. Then the Ops music hits. They all come out. how fucking cool are the Ops? These guys are just cool as shit. I think Samoa Joe might be the most effortlessly cool wrestler ever. Shane?
He's up there. He's up there for sure.
Yeah.
Effortlessly, yeah, absolutely. He's up there because you can tell it's very natural. Like the way he acts when he's cutting promos, like, the way he's interacting with Master P and everything, you could just tell that that's where he comes from. You know what I mean? Like he's very at home. He's not being a character, in those moments. Like when he turns it up and he's more violent, obviously that's more the character side. But when he's just talking and effortlessly cool, just like you said, that's the perfect way to describe him.
Yeah, absolutely. Jangle?
I think Samoa Joe's just one of those guys that knows exactly who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Like
he does
long enough. Yeah, and there's nothing to prove anymore.
Nope.
Multiple time champion, done everything, everything you'd want to do, basically. And he's got nothing to prove. So this is kind of like, if he's on the downside of his career, now it's just time to go out there and have fun and, get people over. Cut some ridiculous promos, choke some people out. Just enjoy it.
Well, and it's a good thing that this man is effortlessly cool because I'm pretty sure he's the only guy who could shill as hard as he did for Master P without looking like a try-hard dork. And he absolutely pulled it off. Look, if Samoa Joe's talking, it's cool. All right, just shut up. It's fine.
I think he gets that OG pass also because we know Samoa Joe's put in the work and he's been around for so long. So it's like you can shill for P because that's almost like OG to OG acknowledgement. Like
absolutely, absolutely.
You're okay.
This dude wrestled Misawa. You know what I mean? Like this guy has kind of done it all.
Yeah.
And Joe may not be. He never had the Roman Reigns run or the whatever run. That just wasn't his time, and he wasn't the perfect fit for the dominant company at the time. But dude's climbed my all-time list big time. And by the way, we're going to be talking all-time list pretty later in this show.
Yeah.
So let me recap a little bit. They're out there. Master P's promoting his work he does with young athletes, student athletes, things like that. Joe, kind of reinforcing the shill. Joe acted kind of more babyface-ish than you usually see him act. Like, we wanted to party in New Orleans. He just doesn't talk like that very often. But it made sense until the Death Riders run out. Marina came out, and I got really distracted because it's Marina, and she's on my screen. Then, and so did the Ops, because then they get attacked from behind. Death Riders start kicking their ass pretty bad. Master P's just kind of standing in the ring like, I'll be here when you're ready for me kind of thing. And finally, Joe takes advantage of a distraction and starts choking the shit out of Jon Moxley. Moxley starts passing out, and Master P lands some comically bad punches that don't look remotely damaging. I would have been willing to take those punches. But P is just cool as fuck. You can't, it's Master P. Come on.
So my brother said about those punches, he was like, P's so used to throwing real punches that he had to overcompensate his worked punches to make sure that he didn't actually
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I get it.
He's not a wimp or anything, but like he just these punches look silly, Joe turned his back to him with Moxley, and P's trying to get a kidney punch in on him. That just didn't look like it would break an egg, but
it was the exact opposite of the Travis Scott busting Cody Rhodes' eardrum.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God. That
they
was
probably told him before he went out there, hey, seriously, be careful. And
be careful. Yeah.
This is Jon Moxley. You're going to get a receipt.
Yeah, exactly. Moxley stops selling for Joe and just beats the shit out of him.
Joe's hey,
the Ops, recovery is broken up by the Young Bucks who come out to make the save. This, obviously the Bucks are trying to curry favor with the Death Riders. It's already feeling pretty wild to start this show, and then Swerve's in the crowd all of a sudden. is coming to get the Young Bucks. Swerve's buck hunting. Then Kenny Omega's music hits. And now you've got all these people out there. Kenny Omega's walking down to ringside. Is Okada out there at this point? I believe he is. Mm-hmm. And
he came out with the Bucks, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Okay. So Kenny comes out. You know, I really feel like we're setting up for like an Anarchy in the Arena or maybe a Blood and Guts match at Double or Nothing. And I think that that's the right call because
I think they've been doing Blood and Guts every summer. Have they, right?
Well, they have.
I'm pretty sure.
But All In is in July. So I think they might move it around based on the different schedules. So who knows? I know Swerve, it might have been even last week or the week before, but he looked at the camera and said Blood and Guts at one point. So my thought is don't have Mox defend the title. It just, nobody's going to buy it. Everybody knows he's holding on to it till All In. So they're going to do a Joe and Moxley title match on Dynamite, which I think is the right call. And then some big multi-man match is going to happen at Double or Nothing. Great use of all these people. Super fun segment. It just felt like, you know, right as the adrenaline was starting to wear off from one thing, like the music hits again and you're like, oh shit. Like, what do you guys think of this?
I think what they're doing specifically with Marina is like, maybe not secretly genius, you know, but it's secretly genius in a way because she's one of the top women in the company and she's had one match since she's been in the Death Riders. And she hasn't competed against any other women. She hasn't feuded really with any other women except for Willow, but that's through the you know what I mean? Through Willow just being a good guy. Like that's not a personal Willow issue. So, but she is one of the top people just being involved so heavily in the Death Rider storyline. So it's like whenever they do insert her back into the women's picture, she's immediately a threat. She's immediately a top contender for whichever belt she decides to go after. And I think that is just one of the smartest ways to get somebody over that I've seen in a long time that's like very not traditional. It's almost like what they did with one of the people that I will bring up later on the Mount Rushmore. Yeah, like I love what they're doing there. They're pretty obviously leading to some sort of multi-man match, which is going to be super fun because it's all the best people in the company, pretty much, like except Will Ospreay, maybe.
Right,
like, he's the, you know what I mean? Like him and Hangman, they're like the only two of the best people not directly involved. So, yeah, like I just think I'm excited to see what they do with it. They're finally moving forward with the world title scene, which is really what pretty much everybody's been asking for. Like,
right.
And it's finally moving forward in an interesting way. So that's, it's getting really good. I'm excited to see where it goes now.
Well, and I think this is with the Death Riders. I think, you know, you really see they've been running in place for a long time and kind of stalling, and they're not stalling anymore. It's progressing. It's moving forward at a nice clip. Now I'm enjoying the Death Riders. I like the Death Riders. Like I don't, you know, they're not doing this silly shit where they tie up the Rock and Roll Express and and run away, you know? And so, Jangle, you?
First of all, if I were the Rock and Roll Express, I would just stop taking bookings on AEW.
It never ends up well, does it?
It does not end up well for them. No, I think they finally did, you know, talking about just running in place and trying to pivot and then having to pivot again and repivot. No solid direction. They finally just, okay, we're going in this direction. We're not trying to build up a challenger of the week. We know that's not going to work. It's too far gone. Like you know, Darby's not here right now. We've already burned through Orange Cassidy. Nobody's going to buy Joe at this point. So let's just do the multi-man. It's obviously the right way to go. It's going to be a big overbooked mess and it's going to be a ton of fun. And
I think this story is going to end up being remembered better than it's being received currently. Like,
they got a lot of stuff to package together when it's all said and done. That they can make something more cohesive out of the parts they have.
People will remember it fondly and forget how annoyed we all were at the time.
Yeah.
That's just,
I think that's how a lot of long-term stories kind of play out though. Like when overall, when the end result is what you wanted and it starts hot, a lot of times, a lot of what happens in the middle can be forgotten, especially the longer the story goes. You know what I mean? Like, not to do a direct comparison, but, because people are talking about it, like the whole bloodline thing.
Right.
Like, there are long patches in the middle of that story where it's like a lot of the whole last year could have been cut out realistically. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the end result was what everybody wanted to see, and the way that they got there was cool, and all of that stuff. So it's like, okay, it's worth it in the end, so we can kind of ignore that bullshit that happened in the middle.
Right.
I think people are going to do the same thing with this.
Yeah. When people are like, man, WWE cinematic masterpiece, 5-year story, it's like, Roman Reigns
like 2 of those years probably could have.
Yeah, exactly. And Roman wasn't actually on the show for long periods of time. So.
Right.
Okay, so we got that. Then we had an Owen Hart Foundation tournament semifinal on this show. Kris Statlander versus Jamie Hayter.
The goddess Kris Statlander.
Well, this was a match I was really looking forward to.
Yes.
We have a very playful crusade, we call it, between the Banemaniacs and the Statlandians, or the Democratic Status, as they've called themselves at times, where we either root for Megan Bayne or root for Kris Statlander. But I'm a fan of both when it comes right down to it. Jamie Hayter, I was expecting to win this match, and that's because Joshi G, from the very beginning, when these brackets were announced, predicted that Jamie Hayter's going to win this whole thing because she has the story with Tony. And what I will say about AEW is they're booking, even when it's like, hey, I won this title opportunity, they find a way to make it personal. And Jamie gunning for Tony has a story that's compelling. Jamie wrestling Tony in Texas for the title, and then maybe winning it and going to Forbidden Door in England as the champion. That's got some obvious pull to it, right? So, I kind of feel like it telegraphs Will Ospreay and Jamie Hayter probably being the winners of the Owen. But what a fucking match these two had. Just awesome chemistry. I've never seen them wrestle each other.
This is the first time.
Yeah, and it's two power wrestlers, just two people kind of known for their hitting hard and their kind of brutality. Jangle, what were your thoughts about the match?
I mean, there's not much else I can add to it. It's just like, just getting to watch two, for the female division, women's division, there's a better word than hoss fight, but,
right.
That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
two meaty girls slapping meat.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
It's hard to describe without sounding just weird and off-putting, but it's,
it's wrestling.
It's wrestling, but
it's all weird and off-putting.
Fair. Actually, that's a very fair point. So there's not really trying to be polite. Because you'd usually, especially like you go into like a tournament setting, you're going to try to like put people in brackets. Like it's going to be a power wrestler versus a smaller, person, and clash of styles, and who's, can they overcome the larger, more physically dominant opponent? But no, it's just nice to see. We're just going to throw bombs on each other until one of us gives up. And that's, one of my favorite forms of wrestling.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ethos, you?
I loved it. Yeah, exactly. Big meaty mamas slapping meat.
There we go.
There we go.
Meaty mamas.
That's what it is. Meaty mamas.
It was, It was definitely, right up my alley, because I too like physical wrestling. You know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna have that style, make it look convincing. Mm-hmm. And they are both very good at making their shit look like it really hurts. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they're both professionals, so it's like, like that they're not hurting each other, but it looks like they are. And that's the best type of wrestling.
Absolutely.
When the shit really looks like it hurts, but everybody's good at the end. So it's like,
right.
The fact that, they do that, that was fantastic. I completely agree with Joshi that that she is gonna take it the whole way.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I like about the presentation that AEW has is, even though the rivalries do eventually get personal, they always start as just competition. It always starts off as I'm a better wrestler than you.
Right.
That's the basis of damn near every single feud in AEW, except for like the elite feuds, you know, because that's more based on like friendship and stuff. But outside of that, like in the Cope FTR feud, but for the most part, they all start as just competition, and then it heats up as time goes on, and then it gets personal. So this is sort of that same trope, even though it's more, maybe you didn't mean to hurt me, but you still hurt me.
Right.
So I'm not going to let that go. And now maybe subconsciously I'm trying to hurt you, even though in the front of my mind, I don't want to consciously do that because I'm a good guy and you're a good guy and blah, blah, blah. But that's the dynamic there. So there's some interesting places that they could go with this. And I'm very excited yeah.
Well, I think it's what there's a possibility here of Hayter becoming a heel through this story because she's pissed. Tony's the only one left who hurt her and put her out. Tony's the one who took the belt off her when she was injured. And in kayfabe, when she came back, she was saying, I'm going to get revenge on the people who did this to me. And who were the people who did it? It was Saraya, she's gone. Ruby, gone. And Tony. And nobody's going to boo Tony. So if you fuck Tony up, which I suspect is what's coming, you're going to get booed. And I love me a good justified heel. Okay.
That's been, I think, as a whole in wrestling, like over the last probably 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
That's been one of the best improved things in wrestling, period. Just no matter what company you watch. I think heels having reasons to be heels and making sense for their decisions, even if you don't like it.
Right.
That's been a way better trope. And yeah, I definitely see Jamie going down that path.
They've been smart with her not to book her too much like a baby face. She's been booked as just a hard ass. And you know, that's the vibes I get from her anyway. Jangle?
Yeah. I mean, I don't, you know, you're making all the good points before you get to me, but yeah,
all right.
But I do agree. Like, I really like this era of justified heel stuff. Like, you can look at this, you can look at, I mean, Kevin Owens always does this. He always makes a way to like.
In an era of WWE that was pretty hard to watch, he hit like him and Jericho when they did the Festival of Friendship and all that stuff. Owens had his reasons. You know what I mean? He had his reasons. Always. They weren't good reasons. You could judge him for his reasons, but he had them. And,
well, even going back to when he debuted in NXT, he immediately turns and attacks Sam. He's like, why did you attack your best friend? He's like, he's got the title. I want it. I'm here to make money and win titles.
Right.
And then started the prize fighter gimmick.
Right. Exactly.
So we had a justification from the off.
Yes. And Swerve, actually very similar. When that whole thing with Hangman first started.
That was the whole reason. He was like, I just want your spot. That's it.
He's like, you don't even act like you want this spot. And it was just given to you. And so fuck you. Get out of the way. Like, that was the whole point. And then it became personal after that first match, and Swerve cheated to beat him.
You see what I'm saying? That's the
sports
thing.
rivalry.
It starts in competition and then gets personal later.
100%.
It's not, I slept with your girlfriend or I spilled coffee on you on accident.
I suspect
a shampoo haircut. It's, you know what I mean? Commercial or whatever. It's nothing stupid.
Right.
I'm better than you. You're going to have to prove to me. And I might do some nefarious shit to make sure I get this W, and now you're pissed, and okay, now we go from here. That's way better. It's more
so
realistic.
good. It's so good.
No, I love it. You're so right about that. You're so right about that.
That's why I always get excited about tournaments in AEW, because I know stories are going to spin off.
Right. Of course. Yeah. 100%. And by the way, AEW really has stepped it up with the Owen this year in general. I mean, these brackets have been monster brackets. Like, you know, the Owen was okay, like the first couple years. Like, it was fine. You know, I was into it enough when it happened, but this year just feels different. I think the C2 has really put some wind in the sails of Tony booking tournaments.
Oh yeah, this year's C2 was pretty much a perfect a tournament as you could have booked.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think with the Owen for me, because I wasn't as familiar with like New Japan and everybody in Ring of Honor and stuff before AEW started. Like I got a lot more familiar with most of those guys who came from those promotions after. And I didn't even start AEW when it started. Like I didn't start watching until like 2021 or something like that. So for me, the Owen was a great opportunity to see some of these lower card talent as far as like, okay, well, why did you even get picked? Like, why did they pick you from the NWA? Why did they pick you from, you know, some obscure promotion in Japan that I've never heard of before? Like, why'd they get you from Mexico? Like, what were you doing in Lucha Underground? You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Yeah.
So the Owen kind of opened me up to a lot of that. And then as far as the women's wrestlers are concerned, also same thing. You know, a lot of them came from NWA and Stardom and different places like that. And that was a foreign world to me up until recently. So for me, I do like the fact that they have more main event talent in it now, but those first two served as like a great educational tool for me to, you know, kind of learn more about, you know, some of the non-main eventers. I'm not even going to call them undercard wrestlers, just non-main eventers, newer guys and girls.
Yeah, and now with the C2, the format of the C2, they're kind of doing that there, where it's like, hey, Kyle Fletcher's got some steam behind him, but like, what if we put Danny Garcia in the first year? He lost almost every match, but he looked so good in losing that it elevated him at the end of the day. There's a lot of people. Mark Briscoe has gotten a lot out of the C2 tournaments, and he's not a guy that's on TV necessarily every week. He's not a guy I would consider a main eventer. I mean, he can main event a TV show. You're not going to put him in a pay-per-view main event, but like, I think the tournaments kind of are establishing their own identities. What I love is that the tournament decides who faces the winner, or the winner gets the title shot at All In. I think that's the right way to go. There's stakes to it besides just winning the cool little pink belt. There's something else to it. So, last thing about this, and then we'll move on.
Actually, I have a question really quick because we were talking about the C2, and I just real quick thought on this. If they do what everybody thinks they're going to do, which is have Okada versus Omega combine the Continental and the International title, what is the prize for winning the C2 going forward?
Get that neat trophy.
Which I think is cool. Like,
yeah,
and they
it's cool.
Should have sort of done it that way from the beginning, but you know.
Well, and I
what
think
they're going to do.
Maybe you get the Revolution title shot would be my guess. Is really like, you know, like with the Owen, when you do win a belt, it's just kind of decorative and you only carry it around for a minute. You know, King of the Ring was way dumber. Okay. Like if you win that fucking shitty tournament, you have to like pretend to be a king and walk around with a fucking crown on your head, you know, unless you're Steve Austin or Triple H, who Triple H apparently
not doing it.
Yeah. He lost the crown on purpose.
I was going to say he kept breaking it on Mankind in segments on purpose too. So that,
but also I wouldn't trash the King of Ring too bad because we did get King Regal and him sitting on that throne just kind of slumped over and looking like the dejected king. It looks like an Elden Ring boss.
He was terrifying, terrifying. I've watched that stuff. I wasn't watching live at the time, but I've gone back and watched that stuff. And,
same.
So sucks that his issues took him out of the mix for that, because that was the run for him. He could have been the champion.
Yeah, that should have been the thing to get him to the get the belt, get the big title on him.
Yep. But and I'm not saying the tournament sucked as in the actual matches sucked. It just was like, what are we doing this for? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like Brett with the crown on. Like what the fuck what are we doing? Like. He's got the sunglasses on with
the whole thing
like,
was just to start a rivalry with Jerry Lawler. That was
it was. And I'm not dissing King of the Ring 93, I think it was, maybe 92, something like that. Because that is a year that is widely mocked in WWE, but Jerry Lawler and Brett at SummerSlam 93, where Jerry is on crutches and then he has Doink fill in for him, and Brett just like kind of punks Doink. and gets him to tap. But then like Lawler reveals that he's not really hurt. Yep. And then Lawler faces Brett. Yeah, he attacks him with the crutch. And Brett makes Jerry submit too. But then Brett won't let it go. And as Jerry's getting wheeled out on a stretcher, he puts one finger up in the air like he won. And it's like the greatest hollow victory, delusional heel bullshit I've ever seen. It's so, I mean, look, Jerry's a fucked up guy, but he was a great wrestler.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did want to say real quick, some people are frustrated at the direction of Kris Statlander. I get it. But part of AEW, I think they think she's lost too much lately. They don't really know where this is going. You know, she did kind of yell at Aubrey in this match, which I thought was interesting. But I'm also like, you can't just like turn her heel again, though. No. But what I would say is AEW is the kind of promotion, they are so stacked that people cycle in and out of pushes, and right now it's just not quite her time. And she's been a good soldier. She really helped Megan Bayne. She really helped Jamie in this match. So it's not a big deal ultimately to me. I love Stat, but I think her time's coming. She is beloved, and they know that. I know they know that. So Gerald, my little 3'6" assistant over here, hit the music. When we come back, we're going to be talking about some more dickheads with a new dickhead managing them. All right. So, fellas, we got a big return on Dynamite this week, all right? He's short. He's bald. Stokely Hathaway is back. How do we feel?
Love it.
Oh, yeah. Good to see that guy back on my screen.
I love Stokely Hathaway so much. He brings me endless joy. They have a lot of really funny ass people in AEW. Have you noticed that? Like, you got Harley Cameron, Stokely Hathaway, RJ City, and they're all funny for different reasons. They got Dalton Castle. You know what I mean? So Stokely is back, but he's not just like back. He's back, because he's the new mouthpiece for FTR. Who had that on their bingo card? Jangle, what were your thoughts when you saw that?
Yeah, that was definitely left field for me. It was like, yeah, I'm Stokely Hathaway's back. That's great. What's he gonna? And he's FDR. Okay, well, because they don't need a mouthpiece, but I guess maybe just Dax is running out of things to say because he's been saying the same things since he's been Dax.
You know, if
I love wrestling, I love my family.
If he wanted to stay heel, he could keep saying those things. But
yeah, just say the same thing every time.
They get the X-Pac heat at a certain point, though. No. But Big Stoke in the full body jumpsuit, right?
Yeah,
and
the
like
tracksuit. That's what it is. Velour tracksuit.
Yes, he's in the velour tracksuit. He's the new mouthpiece of FTR. You saw the Rock and Roll Express in the crowd.
Poor guys.
At the beginning, and I knew the second they showed them on camera. Like,
oh yeah,
they're there to get beat up by FTR.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed this dynamic a lot. One, I enjoyed the Rock and Roll Express. I think Ricky Morton's the coolest. The fact that he still wrestles in his early 70s, it's got to be, or close to it. The fact that he loves modern wrestling as much as he loves wrestling from his own time. And this motherfucker can still sell like a son of a bitch. He took a great fucking pile driver from Dax. You know, while they're up there, they're just waiting to get pile driven. I also love that Robert tucked his chain into his shirt before the violence started. Because he's like, I ain't getting this cross broken. You know what I mean? Kind of telegraphed it a little bit, but
like, I know what's about to happen.
Yeah. He's like, oh, we're about to get our ass kicked.
Yeah.
But really good segment. I love heel FTR. I'm all about it. I think them with Stoke, give it like a month, and I think this is going to be fire. Like, it's already good, but it's going to be fire when it really comes out. The only thing that confused me was Adam Cole running out to save the Rock and Roll Express. Shane, how do you interpret that?
Well, isn't that more so because Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong have issues with FTR?
Right, but where were they?
Oh, they didn't run out with him.
I don't think they
was
did.
Just Adam Cole.
I think it was just Adam Cole.
Okay. Well, if it was just Adam Cole, then I don't really have.
Maybe TK was like,
explain that.
Where's O'Reilly and Strong? And Bryce Remsburg is like, oh, you wanted them for this show? Oh shit. I don't know. Maybe there was some miscommunication.
Did they not
on the
run out together? Did I?
I thought they did. Yeah, that's why I'm like.
I don't know if they did. I just remember seeing Adam Cole. I could be wrong. Well,
because the weird thing is they've been using Adam Cole's music for the group.
Right.
So
right.
I do know that Adam Cole's music hit, and he was definitely like the first one to run out and stuff. But I think they came out too.
Okay, maybe they did.
They had the big Paragon graphic, and I think they mentioned on commentary, the Paragon.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I just
Adam
didn't
Cole
see
ran out first, and then you forget people are behind him because you're like, baby.
Yeah.
Camera follows him before because it was who's my boy? Who's my sweet Canadian boy? O'Reilly, thank you. O'Reilly was right behind him.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, Shane Ethos is wearing an Adam Cole Bebe t-shirt right now.
I am
on this audio only podcast. I'm the alt text of this podcast right now. Just describing to you what I'm seeing.
The second I lifted the shirt into the camera, I realized no one's going to see this except for the two people I'm showing this to. Cool.
All right.
I do also just mentioning Stokely's outfit really quick. I think there's more, and I might be looking too deep into this. I might be getting my books and body slams on with this, looking into things. Shout out to her.
Shout out books.
But it's a very 80s tracksuit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If you look at the movie Paid in Full, or if you look at drug dealers from Harlem in the 80s and stuff, that's exactly how they dressed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know Stokely is kind of, he always does the little subtle hip hop influence, in his promos, and he'll quote rappers and stuff like that, right? So I'm thinking FTR being essentially a throwback team, not the Outrunners,
right?
Which are comically throwback, but FTR is we're restoring, real wrestling, and we're one of those teams from the 80s that's they're like a Brainbusters, basically. They're a new school version of that. So and
Big Art and
music
Tully
is
vibes.
based off of and then their music is based off of one of the Expresses. I always
the
mess
Midnight
it up,
Express. Yeah.
Thank you. So you combine all of those elements. You have Stokely, who's dressing like an 80s drug dealer now. You know what I mean? So I think the whole thing is sort of a throwback, that's sort of the gimmick that they're going to be going for. Stokely's a throwback manager. He's basically an old school, Cornette type, but in the modern era. FTR is that type of tag team, but in the modern era. And everything they do is a throwback to the 80s.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because it was stuck in my head when I saw the tracksuit. I was like, oh man, Brian Zane from Wrestling with Regret is going to sue him for gimmick infringement.
Yeah. Rest Brian Zane.
So I'm glad you said that, because now that'll get that out of my head next time I see him.
Shout out to Wrestling with Regret, one of the only tolerable wrestling YouTube channels anymore. I really dig you, Brian. Good work there, sir.
If there were an adult on the internet other than me, it'd be Brian Zane.
Yeah, exactly. But we are mere children in the presence of Kurt Jangle. Moving right along, last big point from Dynamite. There was a lot that happened, but we're kind of talking about the main points because we got to make time for the grand finale, folks. I think we're going to get a feud with Kevin Knight and Ricochet.
Please.
Yes.
Please.
Yes.
I will feast off of that.
So this night featured nothing but good matches. You had Mark Briscoe versus Ricochet was the first actual match. And it was a fantastic match that Mark Briscoe actually beat Ricochet by the skin of his teeth. Ricochet is the perfect kind of heel right now, where he can lose and it means nothing, because he'll get his heat back and he'll find a way to make you want to see him wrestle again, to get beat again, even though he just took a loss. And so he was going to hit Briscoe with the scissors. Kevin Knight comes out, takes the scissors away, which causes Ricochet to get distracted and end up losing. Great match between Mark Briscoe's looking so good. The guys if you've seen the Briscoes wrestle over the last 20 years, you know what Mark Briscoe's done to his body. I have no idea how he can still do all the shit he does. It's insane. Okay. But they had a great match that Mark Briscoe just ekes out a win, and Ricochet looked super pissed at Kevin Knight. And then later in the night, the Young Bucks faced Speedball and Kevin Knight as a tag team. Now, look, I was excited for this match, as I always am. My boys, the Bucks, are my boys. They're the greatest tag team of all time, in my opinion. The Bucks look better than they have in forever in the ring. Aesthetically, they look better than ever that I recall. They are both just jacked to the fucking gills. They're not even wearing ring gear to the match right now.
They don't have their Mater D vests on anymore.
No, because they're just like, fucking look at these titties. You know what I mean? They're like, fucking bask in the glow of these titties, you fucks. And I am. But they proceed to have the match of the night by a lot, in my opinion. Unbelievable chemistry between these four. Speedball Mike Bailey has absolutely won me over in every way. I have seen plenty of Speedball Mike Bailey before this, but I have never watched him like every week. And every week I find something new to appreciate about this guy. He is so great. And Kevin Knight might end up being the sleeper free agent signing of the year. Speedball was an obvious one. Josh Alexander was an obvious one. Megan Bayne is an obvious one, right? You just look at Megan Bayne, you're like, yeah, sign her for sure. Kevin Knight flew under the radar a little bit, and I think he's proven to me he's going to be a huge fucking deal. This is possibly a future world champion we're looking at. This guy's great. So they have this incredible match. Just classic Buck stuff where you think the match could be over, and then it goes on another 10 minutes because they still get you a million other times. There was even times I thought the Bucks were going to lose. And I bit on a couple near falls that in retrospect could not have been the end of the match. But the match ends. Bailey takes a fucking TK driver on the outside and is totally incapacitated. Knight's taking him on by himself, and he's taking him down. When he goes to do a springboard move from the outside, the Bucks have the ref distracted, and Ricochet runs down and grabs his leg to keep him from springing boarding. And it leads to Kevin Knight taking the loss for the team, but absolutely incredible match. They're clearly building to Ricochet and Kevin Knight, which is, please do this at Double or Nothing. I would love that. Ethos, what'd you think, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Knight has been, first of all, AEW, as you know, as a whole, but again, specifically with Kevin Knight, because he's a newer guy, they understand the importance of music, and his music slaps.
Oh my God, it's so good. The Jeff, baby.
So it's like as soon as that beat comes on, you're already excited because the music's good in and of itself.
Yeah.
And then it reminds you, oh shit, it's also Kevin Knight and he's fire in the ring. So, you know, because my first time ever seeing him was his debut against Jay White. So, you know, I didn't know anything about his New Japan history or anything like that before. So now I have a reason to go back and look at that stuff because he's clearly amazing. Yes. So him and Ricochet, it's like sort of a mirror match, you know, like I think that's what they're going for. But, you know, evil twin versus good twin, bald versus braids. You know what I mean? Like the dynamic is perfect there.
It really is.
In the comical ways and in the athletic ways, you know, because they can each do what the other does. I'm sure Ricochet could do a little bit more just because he's a little bit smaller and, you know, but I don't know that though. I don't know that to be true. Like Kevin Knight might be able to do everything Ricochet can do. So that's the exciting thing is we get to see, you know, Kevin Knight really be pushed, I think, to his maximum, at least current maximum potential, dealing with somebody like Ricochet, because Ricochet will pull it out of him.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Jangle.
Yeah, he's going to level up in a Ricochet feud just immediately. And Kevin Knight's only been at this for 5 years.
Yeah.
He's
like,
he
and
started training 5 years ago.
Yeah, right. Under Shibata.
Yes. Did you listen to that Unrestricted podcast?
Of course I did.
P.S. People, go listen to the Unrestricted interview, AEW Unrestricted podcast. Interview with Kevin Knight. It's really good. I listened to it this morning.
It's the first thing I did at work today is I put that on.
So good.
But yeah, like he's already got so much, and he's this young into it. Mm-hmm. If they do it right, go into the Ricochet feud, do that mirror match, kind of anything you can do, I can do better thing. Ricochet's great at that style of match. Yeah, this is going to be a star making situation.
I think so.
Oh,
I think so.
Yeah.
And I think this will give Ricochet an opponent he can beat, but that opponent will lose nothing, and Ricochet will retain all the dickishness that is making him so must-see at this point. Kevin Knight's vertical leap is absolutely fucking batshit crazy. I'm not sure I've ever seen somebody who can jump higher than this guy in wrestling. It's insane, actually, how high he gets on a drop kick. They did the fucking thing where Speedball had one of the Bucks in like the electric chair position, and he vertical jumps and drop kicks him. Like, what the flying fuck did I just see? Like, that's insane. That is just crazy.
We're on the top rope, and then he jumps up there. Like, a lot of guys do that spot, but most of them need like a running start.
Oh, yeah.
He can just jump up.
Just from a stop.
Yeah. He'll be on his back, kip up, and then do it. Like, how in the fuck? Like,
insane. And so I actually saw him in Defy. He was tag teaming with Kushida versus the Bollywood Boys, Jinder Mahal's ex stable mates. And he did the drop kick. He looked totally different. His dreads were way shorter, and he was wearing like almost like a prison jumpsuit kind of thing. And because they were doing the Time Splitters gimmick together. And so, but when he hit that drop kick live, you're kind of in a state of disbelief. You just can't believe it, because when you see him in person, you realize this is a massive individual. Like, he is a very big man. So I think Kevin Knight's got future world champion potential big time. So
absolutely.
I couldn't be happier about this signing. Couldn't be happier about this feud. The Young Bucks look motivated and hungry. This was the Young Bucks that I think we were missing. I don't believe Matt Jackson had an elbow guard on when he came out. I think that they took some time off to heal up from some injuries. They just look healthier than I think I've seen them in the ring in a long time. And my God, the Young Bucks at their best are the best. Like, it's just hard, it's all taste, right? But like, to me, the Young Bucks structure a match like nobody else, and nobody else can do what they do. So just a fantastic match, fantastic Dynamite. As much as I've loved discussing Dynamite, we have more pressing concerns, because after Gerald hits the music and we come back, okay, we're going to be talking about our male and female Mount Rushmores. No additional picks. No like, oh, well, if it was brawlers or no. I forced everybody into a very small box. And
you know all about boxes.
You shut up. This is my show. Get out of my head, Brett.
Is that why you're so mean to Gerald? You're taking that out on Gerald?
Gerald, hit the music, please. All right, we're back. We're talking Mount Rushmores. Fellas, there's a lot of ways to do this, okay? So my Mount Rushmores are just based on one thing for me, because it makes the decisions easier. Who changed the way I watch wrestling? Okay? Like, what were the people that moved the game forward in my lifetime that inspired me as a fan to, like, check out something else, right? So I'm going to give you my Rushmores. We'll talk about them a little bit. I'll tell you who came close. And then we'll just go kind of around in a circle. So mine are probably the least interesting. In my men's Rushmore, Bret Hart, outside of the Ultimate Warrior, who I originally was the guy who kind of grabbed me because I was just at that perfect age growing up with He-Man and Thundercats and shit. It was like the Ultimate Warrior was like real life He-Man, you know? Real life Conan, something like that. But I was also very drawn to Bret Hart. He was just cool, and he was so crisp. Everything he did was crisp. The next person on my Rushmore might throw some people, Sabu. And the reason for that is Sabu, look, I had seen High Flyers. I had seen even the Flippy Doos, okay? But I'd never seen a high flyer with scars all over his body that was just as happy to jump into a pile of barbed wire as he was or puts himself through a table. Sabu literally pioneered the style that created ECW the way we knew it. I don't care what anybody says, because a lot of people make fun of Sabu now because he botched a lot. He botched a lot because he was always injured, okay? He was always injured because he left it all out there. He just popularized the style that eventually led to what I think became the Attitude Era, even to a certain degree. He really inspired the Dudleys. He really inspired even like Taz. You know, it was originally in his book, he talks about it was originally him that did the tables. Then he went on a tour of Japan, and while he was gone, everybody started doing the table thing. And when he came back, they all pretended like they hadn't been. And so it was like his deal, right? So think how integral that is. We want tables. Like, everything's different without Sabu. Next person on my Rushmore, Jushin Thunder Liger. And the reason for this is simple. I saw a picture of him in PWI magazine before I ever saw him wrestle. 1990, 1991, somewhere around there. I was like, who the fuck is that? That's a cool-ass mask. Then he came to WCW, and he wrestled Brian Pillman. And I had never seen anybody do the shit he was doing. Like, he was the guy that showed me what the cruiserweight style really was. WCW had just started a light heavyweight division, and Brian Pillman was the champion. And Liger took it off him on Christmas Day in the Omni, and 2 months later, Brian Pillman took it back at Super Brawl. I had never seen somebody do an acai moonsault. I had never seen somebody do so many things that Liger did. It wasn't just that he looked cool, but that did help. It wasn't just his dope moves, but that did help. But when you go back and you watch his matches now, he's so fundamentally sound and so great at every aspect of what he's doing. And then as he gets older, he just becomes this goofball lunatic who's like Hulk Hogan posing and, you know, in the middle of the ring and stuff. I mean, he's just so great. So great. And then finally, last guy on my men's Rushmore is Kenny Omega, the only active man that I picked. Kenny, there's just nobody else like Kenny Omega. There's only a few people who could even be in the same category as Kenny Omega. As far as style, it's this super athlete. It's like the culmination of like Dynamite Kid, Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero. It's the culmination of that style into a bigger guy who like absolutely all of his offense is murder, death, kill moves. Like the V triggers that would kill you in real life. You know, if somebody did that to you, it would cave your face in. You know, like Kenny's just the first time I saw him wrestle, or actually, let's say the first time I saw him wrestle Kazuchika Okada in New Japan, blew my mind. I'd never seen anybody as explosive as he is. And And, Kenny's obviously a little older. He slowed down a little bit. But the underrated thing about Kenny that I think a lot of people overlook is what a storyteller he is. He's a fantastic storyteller. He was telling a story with Ospreay that I think they'll finish at some point. I don't think that story's over, but they've tabled it for now. He's told stories with Hangman Page. He is Hangman Page's, the guy who made Hangman Page, So Kenny's just, every time he's on my screen, I'm glued, So real quick, my so close people, the people I was trying to figure out where they belonged and they didn't quite make it. Great Muta, Eddie Guerrero, Chris Jericho, Hiroshi Tanahashi, Terry Funk, Kota Ibushi, and Samoa Joe. Ethos, who you got?
So the way I went about picking mine was similar. I'll say I'll phrase it a little bit different though.
Yeah.
Each one of my picks is what I would call the roots of a tree.
Mm-hmm.
So each one of my picks basically represents a style that all of my current favorites are essentially branches off of that tree. And some of them are a little bit blended. But for the most part, I think you'll see where I'm going. So
sure.
My first pick is Kurt Angle.
Nice.
I think Kurt Angle is, if anybody is new to wrestling and you want to learn anything about character work, anything about being a technician in the ring, anything about when to pull out high flying moves versus when to do grounded stuff, the in-ring psychology portion. I think Kurt Angle is like a perfect representative of all of it. Mm-hmm. He can be scary. He can be serious. He can be hilarious. He can be a goofball. He can do moonsaults. He'll fly off the stage. He'll do a fucking dive off of a steel cage, but he'll also suplex you to death and wrap all your limbs up. And you know what I mean? Like, he has the fundamentals, he has the flair, he has the character, he has everything you could possibly want. And I think guys like, Bryan Danielson come off of that tree. People like that. So my second pick is Shawn Michaels. Because at the time, in the 90s when he was coming up, he was, kind of the main foil to Bret Hart, who was another one of my favorites, but Kurt kind of just slightly edged Bret.
Sure.
But, Shawn was like one of the main foils, and I always appreciate a good heel, because a good babyface needs a good heel in order to be that good babyface. So Shawn was always the perfect foil. He was athletic as shit. Those ladder matches that he was doing with Razor Ramon were, super innovative at the time. And that led to, what we see out of the Hardy Boys and a lot of that Attitude Era stuff that you were just referring to. Sabu, a big influence on that, HBK as well.
Oh, yeah.
So, that, and then guys that, mirror that style to me, you have your Seth Rollinses, your AJ Styles, kind of Kenny. Kenny falls into that mold a little bit. Jericho, later Eddie, because he had a lot more luchador style when he first started. And then, as he kind of progressed, I think his style was more mirrored to Shawn's, where it was a more ground offense, but he'll do some high flying stuff too, but it was more sporadic.
Right.
So, I think Shawn's influence just permeates, throughout the whole game, even guys like Carmelo Hayes and, Kevin Knight, like you were saying, and people like that. So, my next pick is Rob Van Dam, for very similar reasons to Shawn. But I feel like where Shawn focused a little bit more on the actual pro wrestling aspect of the in-ring work, RVD focused on the realism aspect. So he was bringing more MMA style. He was bringing more of that explosive stuff that you were talking about. So I kind of put Kenny in the RVD tree as well, because to me, Jerry Lynn and RVD are the closest thing in the 90s that you get to a Kenny Omega. Like, style wise, even down to the look, especially with Jerry Lynn, like that looks like his older brother damn near. But
right.
So yeah, RVD for sure. Again, yeah, your Kenny Omegas, your your Ospreys to a degree. You know, a lot of the stuff that the Young Bucks do was stuff that RVD was doing in ECW. You know, people along those lines. And then finally, you have The Rock. And so I have The Rock on there because, in my personal opinion, when it comes to the main event of the Attitude Era, he was the best in-ring worker. You know, if you look at their matches today and you look at what we consider to be, you know, good in-ring matches, The Rock was having the best matches out of everybody. Taker wasn't really having good in-ring matches. Austin was hurt. So Triple H depended on the opponent. Foley, it was more spectacle based, if we're, you know, being all the way honest. You know what I mean? Big Show was in and out. Jericho was like more of an upper mid-carder. He didn't really hit the main event till after the Attitude Era. So if you really look at the true Attitude Era, the in-ring guy was The Rock. And then later on, you know, he leans more into the Samoan side of his heritage nowadays. But back then, he felt a lot closer to a representation of me and my family. You know what I mean? Like he represented that, and to see him be WWE champion and be treated like, you know, like an actual superstar and not having to do silly ass, you know, gimmicks like, you know what I mean? Like Ahmed Johnson screaming, "I'm a gang member" on TV, and you know, the shit that they did with Bad News Brown and Roddy Piper, and the shit that they were doing with Kamala. And you know what I mean? Like, so it was just really refreshing to see just a dude, you know what I mean, who is, you know, whose skin is the same color as mine, and he just is cool, and he's treated like a superstar, and that's it. You know what I mean? So that was just awesome to see. And then that paves the way for, you know, your Bobby Lashley's, your Carmelo Hayes's, your Kevin Knight's, you know, your Swerves, because none of them are really like your stereotypical quote unquote black guy. They're just cool, or they're just really good wrestlers, and people appreciate it for what it is. And that's that. You know what I mean? So I think The Rock kind of opened the door for that. So yeah. And then I don't really have people that followed his style per se, because he has a really kind of unique wrestling style. So I don't really have people on his tree per se, but I just think that his stamp, because of what he was doing in the Attitude Era and, you know, where it continues to this day, where he took it, I think, you know, he deserves that spot. So Kurt Angle, Shawn Michaels, RVD, The Rock.
Nice. Well, that's a cool list.
Yeah, that's
Jangle.
You know, anytime I have to think about any sort of Mount Rushmore style thing, I always have to go with impact and legacy. It's the only way that I can make sense how I would pick these things. So, but also there's, you know, going to be some gut instinct, some sentimental favorites. Being from Texas, got to go Stone Cold. Texas dude, doesn't like authority, wears boots and jeans all the time, you know? So immediately, like, who's this guy? What's he all about? I find out what he's all about. I'm like, yeah, I dig that. And then the beer baths and all the, you know, all the catchphrases, except for the what thing, that got a little. Oh, we could take that out. That's
fucking Steve.
But I mean, you know, and even the heel Steve Austin stuff with Kurt.
That shit was great.
Tiny cowboy hat. Now it's, you know, and he had a humorous side when he wanted to, and he could do, you know, he could flip back and forth between that and the absolute menace that he was. So Steve Austin definitely on my list. Bret Hart's on my list. If he's not on your Mount Rushmore, then I don't know if I can actually have a conversation.
Well, you have had a conversation with Shane this whole hour.
I know, but but he's got some other. He pulled the Shawn Michaels, so I can, you know.
Yeah,
you're gonna have Bret or Shawn,
and he's got Angle, so
yeah. So that kind of, you know, somewhere in the mix there, you've still got the Bret Hart influence seeping through. Even before I realized how good he was, I realized how cool he was.
Yep.
Music starts. He's got the black and pink. He's got the wraparound shades, like the whole presence of that. And then just like, and he wasn't the biggest dude. I mean, he's bigger than me, but he's not, you know, a Razor Ramon.
Right.
But, but he still had presence that you didn't look at him like a small guy.
He knew how to hold himself. Yeah.
Oh yeah. He carried himself great. So definitely got to have him on the list. I got to go Sting. Longevity, and he has the mix of always having a great character work, having longevity, and never really jumping the shark, and never really having anybody talk a bunch of crap about him. Like he just everything you hear about him, just like he's the nicest guy. He comes in, he's professional. He'll do what's needed of him. And, he just tries to help out wherever he can. And that's so refreshing in a world of Ric Flairs and Hulk Hogan's and Undertakers, Mark Calaway's that, so I got to give to Sting for, coming up with all those guys and still being the kind of the example of how to really be the professional in the room. Mm-hmm. And, then I got to go with Mick Foley. For kind of, I don't want to say streamlining, but like bringing deathmatch to the masses in a palatable way, and opening that door for a little more realistic violence, a little more sicko stuff, giving Terry Funk a little more time on the end of his, the middle end. Early middle end of his career, wherever the Terry Funk timeline goes, when he was just a kid at 45. Yep. And also, again, having some great character work, being known as a professional, being known as a good person. That's always going to get extra points in my book. Yeah. So I think that's. I could have put Austin or Foley on mine. I really liked Kurt Angle. I particularly like Kurt Angle when he's funny. That's my favorite Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle with hair, honestly, was that beginning run where like every time he won, he acted like he won the gold medal at the Olympics. That shit was hilarious. I mean, it was just goddamn funny. Oh yeah.
Well, he's another guy that just got it so fast. Yes. You know what I mean? God. Like once they just pretty much explained to him how professional wrestling works, it was like, oh, okay, got you. Well, and immediately caught on to it. Like, because again, his character work is flawless. And it's like, not everybody picks up on that. Even people who grow up watching wrestling, they're not even the best, but he picked up on that like amazingly fast. Yeah. Randy Orton said like 3 years ago, I didn't understand that interviews mattered until like 5 years ago. Like he's like in his 40s saying that. Like Angle got it all. He understood it all. And he understood it all. I mean, he won the world title within a year of debuting. But also the thing about Kurt that you got to appreciate is how fast he is. Like Benoit was like the only dude who didn't come from like an elite athletic background that could kind of hang in the speed department with Angle. But if you look at him and you look at Brock, they're real, like legit athletes, like, top elite level athletes, like gold medal type athletes, because they're so fast. Like, watching Eddie Guerrero work a lot of the time, he's so quick he almost has to slow down for his opponent sometimes. And Angle's almost having to slow down for Eddie. You know what I mean? Like he's that fast. So not to diss Eddie by any means. He could have been very easily on my Rushmore. All right. So to wrap us up, we're going to talk about our women's Rushmores real quick. All right. So Kurt Jangle had to jet. So it is just me and Shane Ethos left. 2 men standing. About holding it down. About to talk about some ladies Mount Rushmore. That's right. That's right. My Mount Rushmore is a difficult one because there's some picks on it that this is one people could be swapped in and out pretty easily. But I'm putting Timeless Tony Storm is on my Mount Rushmore. I mean, I don't know how anybody could have a women's Mount Rushmore without Tony Storm on it. I'm sure people do. That's fine. But Jesus Christ, this woman's last 2 years have been insane and unprecedented
Every time she's on the screen, she doesn't just like do a good job. She like hits a grand slam every time. Next on my list is Bull Nakano. Mid-90s, came to WWF, wrestled Medusa / Alundra Blaze. I did not know anything about All Japan Women's Wrestling. I did not know anything about Bull's pedigree. I was just immediately taken with her. And it was amazing to see really competitive, good women's wrestling on American television. And this last year, as people who listen to the podcast will know, I've been going and exploring Joshi wrestling a lot more. And I've seen a ton of Bull Nakano in All Japan Women's, and she's fantastic. She was big, but she could brawl, but she could also fly. She was intimidating as fuck, and just looked legit in everything she did. So, Bull Nakano, Manami Toyota is also another woman that I've seen a lot of matches of now. And I have to say that she is pretty much the template. I think she's been extremely influential, not just to women, but to men as well. I think Kenny Omega actually gets a lot from her. And she's the ultimate baby face. She knows how to fight from underneath. She's always the underdog. She's always getting destroyed, usually by somebody much larger than her. And she finds a way to, even if she doesn't win, to like almost win or hang in, like she's that quintessential baby face. So lastly on my list, the CEO, Mercedes Moné. There's a lot of people that could have been in this spot, but I got to give it to Mercedes, man. She, especially since leaving WWE, she had already accomplished so much there, but now with her touring the world, wrestling on every continent she can, she's about to become the first woman ever to wrestle in Madison Square Garden, the Tokyo Dome, Arena Mexico, and I can't remember, there was one more building. But she's the only woman to ever do it with that Lucha show they're doing in June. Can't say enough good things about her. She has moved women's wrestling in America to a whole new level. Her character work is great, but really a woman who's proved time and time again that she's a lifer and that she's really here to be great. Which, male or female, that's very common that people are not. They're there to make money and make the easy money and be stars and be famous, And she says her favorite of all time is Eddie Guerrero, and you can tell because she is so committed to excellence. My close calls on this one, there were some really close ones for me. Athena, the ROH women's title run she's been on.
Insane.
I mean, she's as good a worker as Mercedes. I mean, she's that good. Yeah. She's that good. She's insanely good. Becky Lynch was also a pretty close call. I think this would have been Becky from years back, but the run she had as the man, and that was right up to the point I stopped watching WWE, but great talker, great character, believable in the ring, a lot of fun. And her feuds were great, and she's so witty. Oh my God. Her Twitter burns are fucking brutal. Mayu Iwatani from Stardom, current IWGP Women's Heavyweight Champion. If I understood her character a little better, I might have her on the Rushmore, but maybe the best in-ring women's worker I've ever seen. Fantastic. If you haven't seen a Mayu Iwatani match, you're missing out. Go watch it. And then lastly, Asuka. Fuck. This woman's brutality with the kicks and her athleticism. I had only seen her in WWE. It wasn't until much later that I went back and watched her work as Kana, and astounding, just astounding shit. She was fantastic. I've heard people say she's not the worker she used to be. Well, guess what? She's in her 40s. She's fantastic. She deserves all the flowers. She's one of the most influential wrestlers in North America on the women's side. And I think a lot of young girls will look at all of the women on the Rushmore and all of these other women as reasons to be wrestlers. And Asuka's definitely on that list. Shane, who you got?
So yeah, this one was tough for me also, just because a lot of the people that you mentioned as close are also in my honorable mentions as well. But I tried to stick to sort of the same guidelines that I picked on the first one. So we'll see. So my first pick is China.
Nice.
Because now, as I alluded to earlier in the podcast, I think what they did with China is what they're doing with Marina Shafir right now.
It's totally modeled after China. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. You put her with the top guys. You don't necessarily have her fight women.
Right.
You have her beating up dudes. And then that automatically makes her a top woman if you ever want to put her in that spot. China never really was in the women's division per se. I mean, she had the title, but, not really.
In her last match, she won the title, basically.
Yeah, it's like,
and she just killed Ivory. Yeah.
Yeah. So that doesn't even really count, No. So really she was in the men's division, but that builds for your Beth Phoenixes, that builds for your, Nia Jaxes in certain respects.
Yeah.
Your Jade Cargills, your Bianca Belairs, your Megan Baines, your Kris Statlanders, like all of them are from the China tree.
100%.
AJ Lee is on my list. Now I have AJ. She actually was most active during a period I really wasn't even watching live. I had to go back and actually check on a lot of her stuff, but I see the influence. So it looks like they tried it a couple of times and it worked with AJ as far as the aesthetic, the sort of punk rock kind of girl, not really your stereotypical blonde, big boobed, you know what I mean? Model looking chick. Like she was still attractive, but not in the same way that WWE normally would present their attractive women.
It wasn't the sole point of her character. Yeah.
Not even close, really. Like, I mean, they had relationship angles and stuff, but that was more about like her being manipulative and stuff like that. It wasn't necessarily about sexuality outright. You know what I mean? So, which is basically how every woman was presented up until that era for the most part. You had your exceptions, but for the most part, 80 to 90%, that's what women were. Yeah. So AJ Lee is one of those people that kind of breaks that mold. And I think from her, you get your Paige, aka Saraya. Yeah. You get your Rhea Ripley's, you get your Cora Jades, you get your Roxanne Perez's, and then on the AEW side, I could see a lot of Julia Hart. Yeah. I could see, some Sky Blue, some Ruby Riott. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that I could see that kind of spur from that AJ Lee tree. Bianca Belair is on my list. I feel like at the time that she beat Sasha Banks, aka Mercedes, at WrestleMania, I feel like Bianca was the best wrestler in WWE, full stop.
Yeah. She was,
man or woman. I feel like she was pound for pound the best wrestler. She could, again, kind of like the Kurt Angle thing, she can do everything well.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, I would say the only thing that she lacks in a little bit is character work, and that's only because they have her playing the same character for years now at this point. Yeah. So that's not a her thing. No. She hasn't really been afforded the opportunity to show us anything different. But in that ring, she can do everything, all the strong person stuff. She can do all the flips. She can do 450s, moonsaults, all that type of stuff.
She came through CrossFit, didn't she? Wasn't that like her thing?
That and maybe track and field, something like that. I think she was a shot putter, possibly.
Okay.
So and then just the fact that again, unfortunately in an era where a lot of black talent still wasn't being treated the same as their white or other race counterparts. Right. Bianca was.
Yep.
She was one of those people. She main evented Mania.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Her and Mercedes, first two black women to ever do that.
Right.
So
Mercedes made her that night, like in the sense of like put her over, made her look as strong as she possibly could.
100%. 100%. They had a banger. That was such a great match. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. It was so
amazing
good.
Match.
That's the last WrestleMania I watched. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I think Bianca deserves the spot just based on how good she is in comparison to all of her peers who are also really good. You know what I mean? Like women's wrestlers as a whole are just really good nowadays. Like, AEW, in my opinion, that's been the highlight of the last easily 5-6 episodes, maybe the last month and a half worth 100%. Of TV. The women have been holding it down. So, to be the top of the top right now, that means something. So that's why Bianca goes there. And then my final spot is my favorite women's wrestler of all time, Lita.
Nice.
Lita was the first woman that in my memory was like actually good in the ring. She wasn't just eye candy. She was out there doing moonsaults, doing Hurricane Ranas. You know what I mean? And then they hooked her up with the Hardy Boys, Team Extreme. That was amazing. Right. You know what I mean? And then she basically helped Trish become the worker that she became because that was really the only person that she could feud with at the time. Because nobody else was consistent. Like Victoria was around and then she wasn't. Jazz was around and then she wasn't. Right. So it was really just Lita and Trish. And Lita was the only one that could actually wrestle until Trish learned how to do it working with Lita. Right. So you don't get the amazing Trish run without Lita. And then Lita, again, if we're talking about roots on the tree, you don't get the AJ Lees without Lita.
100%.
So, AJ is kind of the more modern version of what we, like all those people that I mentioned, but Lita's like the seed. If AJ's the roots, Lita's the seed.
Nice.
So it's
well said.
So I love Lita. I love everything that, she was doing back in those days. I think when she comes back, she's obviously, a step slower as well because she's in, her 40s or whatever, but she's still doing moonsaults and she's still selling and you know what I mean? Like she's doing everything that she should be doing if she's going to come back and have a match here and there. So I'll forever love Lita. And then on my honorable mentions, I already brought her up a few times, but Saraya, because I feel like I picked AJ only because she came out slightly before Saraya did. Right. But I think Saraya is the same catalyst as far as being able to like be alternative, be different in wrestling, not have to fit the stereotype and still be treated like a big deal. So AJ and Paige are right there, but I gave it to AJ because she came out a little bit earlier. So Asuka for all the same reasons you mentioned. And she really opened me up to Joshi wrestling. I started checking out, because of the Kana character. So that made me more familiar with Io Shirai at the time. Right. And then saw her stuff in Lucha Underground. And I'm like, oh, she has a twin and like all, you know what I mean? And then Mina Shirakawa, like I was able to be familiar with her before AEW run. That's cool. And that was because of Asuka, because of where that path of searching Japanese women's wrestling led me down. And that started with Asuka. So Toni Storm is in my honorable mentions. The only reason she didn't make the Mount Rushmore is because I didn't want recency bias to play too much of a factor in my decision making. And I love everything that she's doing right now. I just want to make sure that when we look back on it in 5 years, that it's still just as good as what we think it is now. Yeah. So that's why for now, honorable mention, but we'll possibly revisit this and see where it goes. Right. Awesome Kong is on my honorable mentions because again, Piper Niven, Nia Jax, Nyla Rose, that's Awesome Kong all day.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Gail Kim.
God. Yeah.
She's honorable only because, again, I wasn't actively watching when she was doing her thing. I had to go back and learn about the history and how important she was to women's wrestling. So
same.
Trish Stratus, not on there because I gave Lita the spot. One, because she's my all-time favorite. And two, like I said, I don't think you get this level of Trish without her work with Lita.
Right.
Bull Nakano, same reasons that you mentioned earlier, and cool hair. I'll throw that in there.
Super cool hair.
Alundra Blaze. I'm going to say Alundra Blaze specifically, not Medusa, because I was more familiar with her WCW run as a Medusa, which was nothing. Pretty much
sucked. Yeah,
it was terrible. I learned about the Medusa Michelli stuff from AWA way after the fact. Right, but I do remember her Alundra Blaze matches. Right. And those were some good ass working, lots of wrestling moves, hard hitting ass matches.
Yep.
And especially for the 90s, that wasn't what was going on.
Well, and to see really competitive women's wrestling, you know, before the diva shit, before the Attitude Era, before all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she had been in the AWA. She did All Japan Women's, and then she was in WCW before WWE. She was where she had a pretty good run, but she was more of a manager. And then,
right.
And then she went to WWE, became Alundra Blaze. Then they have her throw the belt in the garbage. Bischoff signs her away and then just buried her. And totally wasted the rest of her career, basically. But she's huge, hugely influential. Like I think she paves the way for China. She paves the way for a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely. Ivory, Victoria, a lot of the people in that like next crop of like legitimate women's wrestlers.
Yeah.
Alundra Blaze, aka Medusa, was definitely huge. She's on their Mount Rushmore for sure.
Right.
And then I got Mercedes, all the same stuff you mentioned.
Yeah.
You know, but again, recency bias, didn't want that to. So I was like, I don't know.
I understand.
And then lastly, I have Charlotte Flair.
Yeah.
Because I also think Charlotte at one point was the best wrestler possibly in WWE. I just wasn't watching at the time when that was going on. Mm-hmm. So
Charlotte is an incredible wrestler. And I haven't seen a match of hers in a long time, but when I was watching, I would say 2016 through 2019, Charlotte was, top 5 in the company, and male or female. And just had incredible gifts. You know, she started wrestling kind of late, and like, she won a bunch of titles, kind of manufactured a bunch of title reigns. Vince did, but that's okay. Cause that Charlotte looked like a world champion. It's not like she didn't belong there at all. She did.
Right.
100%. Really bummed me out when she beat Asuka by submission at WrestleMania. When Asuka had the streak going and they barely did anything with it. Yeah, it didn't make sense. But that aside, that's not Charlotte's fault. That's the booking.
The matches themselves were phenomenal.
Yeah, the match was good. It could have
regardless of the last 5 seconds of the match.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like everything leading up to that was always fire. So,
and I think that match would have been better if it had 5 more minutes. You know, it's just probably, like they were the second match of the show, I think. So, well, quite an extensive Rushmore deep dive with my friend Shane Ethos here. Shane, thank you for being on. I want to thank Kurt Jangle for being on. Check out Kurt Jangle, the only adult on the internet. You can find him if you just put Kurt Jangle into Opera on a Nintendo DS. And then listen to the Ethos Media Network. They're covering all kinds of stuff about the culture and wrestling, music, sports of lots of different kinds, lots of stuff, politics, everything. And check out the show Don't Call Me Diva with our friend Bex Bastet, produced by Shane Ethos. Until next time, I'm Blade Daly.
And I'm Shane Ethos.
Pro wrestling forever. Get the hell out of here, Jack Payne!